Okay, number 28 and 29 are graphing inequalities. To graph inequalities, you need to find an x-intercept or a y-intercept and the slope. Okay, so I'm going to find those things, which we've already done on some problems. So just a reminder, your slope is opposite of a over b. Okay, x-intercept is where y equals 0. Y-intercept is where x equals 0. Now, when you're finding your x and y-intercept, you're just going to treat this like an equation, not necessarily an inequality. So we're going to write x minus 2y equals 6, and instead of y, I'm going to replace it with a 0. So x minus 2 times 0 equals 6. Well, anything times 0 is 0, so that goes away, and it literally tells me x equals 6. So on my x-axis, I'm going to put a point at 6. So this is my x-axis, here's 6. Okay, now I'm going to find my y-intercept. So again, x minus 2y equals 6. We're going to treat it like an equation. And instead of x, I'm going to put 0. So 0 minus 2y equals 6. Well, 0 goes away. And I divide both sides by negative 2, and I get y equals negative 3. So on my y-axis, I'm going to put a point at negative 3. And then again, slope, well, this is just 1. So I have 1x minus 2y. Well, it's opposite of a over b. So it's going to be opposite of positive 1 is negative 1 over exact b, which is negative 2. And 2 negatives makes a positive. So I'm going to rise 1, run 2. So rise 1, run 2. Rise 1, run 2. Rise 1, run 2. And it brought me back to my point, meaning I did it correctly. So rise 1, run 2. I'm going to go all the way across. And then I can go down and backwards. So I can go down 1 backwards 2, down 1 backwards 2, down 1 backwards 2, all the way across. Now I have to think about, because this is an inequality, I have to think about, is it dashed or solid? Well, I just have a less than, meaning it's going to be dashed. So just a reminder, if it's less than or greater than, it's dashed. Okay, so I'm going to dash my line. And then I have to figure out where to shade. Well, because it's in standard form, I can't just look at my symbol and say, oh, less is below, because it could flip if I multiply or divide by negative. So I have to test a point. So we had x-intercept, y-intercept, slope, dashed, and shading. So the point I'm going to test, well, 0, 0 is not on my graph, so I'm going to use 0, 0 because that's the easiest point to plug in. So knowing that, I'm going to replace, so I have x minus 2y is less than 6. And instead of x and y, I'm going to put 0. So 0 minus 2 times 0 is less than 6. Well, 0 minus 0 is just 0. Is 0 less than 6? Yes, it is, so this is true. Therefore, this side is true, and if that side's true, this side is false. So we always shade the true side, which would be above. Okay, so we're going to do the exact same thing on number 29. We're going to find our x-intercept. We're going to find our y-intercept. Now, you don't actually have to find both, but it also was nice because we were able to check our work with our slope, which brought us to the other point. So it's not a bad thing to do. Okay, so let's start with x-intercept, y-intercept, and slope. So x-intercept is where y equals 0. Y-intercept is where x equals 0. Slope is opposite of a over b. So I have my x minus y, and remember, for x-intercept and y-intercept, I'm treating it as an equation. So x minus y equals 3. Well, y is 0, so I have x minus 0 equals 3. Well, that goes away, and I just have x equals 3. So on my x-axis, I'm going to put a point at positive 3. So here I have x minus y equals 3, and instead of x, I'm going to put 0, so I have 0 minus y equals 3. Well, the 0 goes away, but I have negative y. Now, you can't have a negative y, so I have to divide both sides by negative 1, and I get y equals negative 3. So on my y-axis, I'm going to go to negative 3. Now, for my slope, remember, this is 1 and this is 1. If there's no number, there's 1s. So opposite of a, well, a is positive 1, so the opposite of that would be negative 1, over exact b, which is negative 1, and 2 negatives makes a positive. Now, I always want my slope to be a fraction, so since it's positive, I'm going to rise 1, run 1. rise 1, run 1, rise 1, run 1, and it brought me back to my other intercept, so I did it correctly. So all the way across my graph, I can also go down 1, backwards 1, and then I have to decide, is this a solid line or a dashed line? So this one is actually solid because it's equal to. So anytime you have these symbols, it's going to be a solid. So I can make a solid line. And then again, we have to figure out our shading. So we have to test a point. Again, 0, 0 is not on our line, so we can use 0, 0 as a test point. Now, if 0, 0 was on our line, we would not be able to use that point. You could use any other point on the graph, just not 0, 0. So I have x minus y is greater than or equal to 3. Well, that would be 0 minus 0 is greater than or equal to 3. Well, 0 is not greater than or equal to 3. So this is false. So this point is false. So that side of the line is false. This side of the line has to be true. So that's where you would shade.